Cheeks here with Pitch Investors Live to educate you on how to pitch perfectly to investors. Today we're going to talk about the investor PowerPoint deck or presentation or slide summary that you need to make sure that you have ready for presenting to your investor. This is one of those documents that is going to be the fulcrum of all of your efforts. This is going to summarize the business plan but have more information than your one-page summary and include tidbits from your financials so that your investor can visualize every aspect of your business. This is an opportunity for you to put your pitch into a format that's easiest to digest visually and allows you to have a spotlight in discussing the points and nuances of your business while they're looking at the presentation. Investor presentations are usually delivered in person, though sometimes they can be done through a web chat or a screen share, and there's something that is used as a visual aid so that you can talk over the main points but give your investor something to look at. A lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of cramming their entire business plan into a pitch deck, and that's not the purpose of a pitch deck. It's not meant to be the same information that's in your business plan verbatim. It's meant to be a different way to interpret it and understand it. We're going to talk today about 5 tips for developing a great presentation for your investor, and you need to know that this document comes dead last when it comes to developing all of your business plan, financials, and executive summary documents for a reason. The PowerPoint is not something that should be developed on its own outside of a business plan being done first. Your business plan is going to set the stage and give you the foundation needed to pull the right data points and nuances of information to put into your PowerPoint. So make sure your business plan is done first. With your PowerPoint, you need to make sure that there's a little bit of art and science mixed into the way you present it. You want it to be something that gives you a visual aid and talking points to go by, but you do not want it to be a script for you or a crutch in a way that takes away from your ability to talk naturally with your investor. We're going to talk today about how you can actually achieve that fine balance, and in general, it's going to become something that makes it easier for you to pitch. Not harder, not more difficult, and certainly not something that is a burden on you when it comes time to having those investor discussions. Sometimes you have to be careful not to have too many slides, too many words, too many images, because you'll end up crossing into that line of death by PowerPoint. So there's definitely a few specific tricks I'm going to show you that's going to make sure that your PowerPoint stays on track and does not miss the point with your investor. The first tip I have for you is make sure that your PowerPoint is independent of but complementary to your business plan. Your PowerPoint slide deck is not meant to be an exact representation of your business plan. If it were, you'd have a slide deck that was about 25 to 50 slides long, and it would be something that would be so cumbersome that no investor would want to look at it. Instead, you want something that's closer to the 10 to 15 slide range, and you want to make sure that it's something that's simply an aid for them while you are talking in person. Some people think that the PowerPoint deck is something that you send through to an investor for them to evaluate your business. However, that's not the way it's intended. The PowerPoint is meant to be an aid in speaking presentations. So this is something more akin to boardroom style pitching, or even sitting at a Starbucks in front of a computer and having an interaction with the investor one-on-one, or doing a remote screen share where you're talking through the presentation as they're viewing it. But it's not meant to be a standalone document. And for that reason, you can have a lot less information in your PowerPoint and still deliver the most important parts verbally during your pitch. Knowing that your PowerPoint deck is an aid and is not a script and is not the complete story of your business plan, you should be able to realize that this is something that's really quick and painless to put together if you do it correctly. Every slide that's in your PowerPoint is going to have a piece of information that does correlate with your business plan, but it may not have everything verbatim. So you might have a market entry slide, an operations slide, a financial slide, maybe you'll have an executive summary slide that's followed by your operations team slide. But you definitely want to make sure that it has a flow, that it covers generic points, and that it covers what your investor needs to see to understand holistically what your business is and what it's trying to do next as it grows. One important slide that you want to include is the use of funds breakdown, and at the very least put it in your appendix because you're probably going to get asked about this very directly. You need to be able to tell your investor during your presentation how their funds will be used in your business and why their funds are the right amount to get your business to where it needs to go. So they're going to say, why do you need $1 million and what are you going to use it for? With a simple table added to your presentation or a pie chart or something visual to show them where this money is going, you can help the investor visualize and understand why their money is going to be an asset in your business, how you're going to use it very carefully, very wisely, and within a specific budget, and that's going to help them understand what risk level they're dealing with when it comes to their cash. If you're using it 100% for marketing, or if you're using 100% for manufacturing equipment, that makes a difference in the risk tolerance for that investor. So make sure that you explain those things to them up front in the presentation. Tip number 2 in developing your PowerPoint presentation for your investor is to have a single image on every single slide. This is one of those things that people either take way overboard or they forget about completely. If you have too many images on one slide, it can be really overwhelming to look at. And what that will do is turn your investor into a curious person staring at your PowerPoint deck instead of looking at you and talking with you and interacting with you. You're going to be trying to decipher all of the images on your slide deck, and they'll be distracted by that instead of being focused on what you're talking about in your pitch. When you don't have any pictures on your PowerPoint slide, you're going to run the risk of losing them out of boredom. The imagery helps the investor to visualize your business concept from every angle. Now, word of caution here. Don't pull a random stock photo and plug it into your PowerPoint. That can take away from the quality of your pitch. You want to make sure the pictures you put in are relevant to what you're talking about or relevant to the title on the slide, and that they play a role in telling the overall story that you're trying to tell about your business. So please be careful and don't pull any random picture of a keyboard or of a person working or of a world and a stock photo with hands around it. Try to avoid that. It doesn't come off very well. For your presentation, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So what might have taken you a couple of pages in your business plan to depict, you have an opportunity to show it in just a single image, and you should take that opportunity. This is something that's going to help your investor to digest everything perfectly when you give them your presentation. One small piece of advice about animations in your PowerPoint: if you have images that appear or disappear or do flip-diddy-flips because you're using the animation feature in PowerPoint, be really, really careful and subtle about it. If you use too much with movement and with animations, it can actually detract from the presentation quality. So I definitely recommend you use it if you can, but don't overdo it. The third tip I have for you is about the information that you lead with in your presentation. You want to lead with the best, most important facts that you have about your business. This means key facts like your revenue, the industry you're participating in, your asking amount, your business type. They should be on the very first content slide of your presentation. So title slide, table of contents, and then the overall summary. This is something very simple. You can do it in a couple of words per talking point, but essentially you're saying we are servicing the software as a service market, and we are targeting $3 million in revenue by year 2, and we're asking for $500,000 today in raise. That snapshot view helps your investor get grounded right away. So instead of going into a story and talking about who you are and where you came from and what your business is all about, which you do need to get into later in your presentation, you want to lead with, this is why we're here today, because that's what they want to talk about first, so don't bury those details. When you put it on those first slides, you help the investor to make sure that they understand why you're all talking together right now, so they don't lose interest. If you lead with your backstory and you explore the narrative of your business before you ever talk about numbers, asking amount, or just why you're raising capital, then your investor may lose interest and start trying to drive the presentation themselves. You'll notice this once they start asking questions like, okay, so what's the revenue? Okay, so what do the margins look like? Okay, so how much money do you need and why? And you'll find that they're pushing you to get to the points that they're interested in. And that happens when you're not driving it with their needs in mind first. So very first slide that has any important content on it should have the overarching summary of why you're here today, what your business is about, what industry it's in, and what the money is going to do for your business. The fourth tip that I have for your investor presentation is to take the caveman approach when it comes to developing your slide content. The caveman approach says that if you can't grunt out in a few words what the point of each bullet is, then you're probably overcomplicating it. When you're building your PowerPoint deck, you want to make sure that everything is as short, condensed, and concise as possible, which means you don't want to use full sentences on every slide. You really want bullets with a couple of key words after every bullet. So maybe a noun and an adjective, maybe a little piece of information statistically, but you really do not want to go and explain the full concept in writing in your PowerPoint. Those are talking points for you for when you're delivering your pitch. So they're not meant to be read, they're meant to be referenced. As you develop your presentation, you want to make sure that you have just a few bullets on every slide. 3 to 5 max is the goal and target. And then on the other half of the slide, have a nice image. That way you have just a few words, a good visual, and keep it that simple. Just because you have dead space on your PowerPoint, it doesn't mean that you have to fill it. Your investor wants to listen to you talk and just kind of see things that validate what you're saying on the slide, but that doesn't mean they want to read the entire slide. If they wanted that, they would pick up your business plan, not your pitch deck. So make sure you're using that pitch deck as talking points, make sure the caveman approach checks, and if every single bullet point on your slide can be summarized in a couple of grunts, oh, market entry, oh, this is revenue potential. If that's something you can accomplish in every slide, then you've done your job and you've done great. Do not try to put in too many bullets, keep it short and simple, and make sure your overall slide count stays as low as you possibly can keep it. The 5th tip for you to consider for your investor presentation is to make sure that you're actually encouraging dialogue in your investor discussion. As you go through your presentation, you might be using speaker's notes to help guide your discussion, and I want to offer a word of caution. Keep those speaker's notes as brief as possible so that they are talking points for you, but do not make them sentence length, paragraph form, or script style, because you will find yourself reading off of them as such. You want them to be more bullets and cliff notes for you and quick reference items, but you do not want to be found reading off of your speaker's notes. The reason for this is your dialogue will die if you're doing that. If you're using your PowerPoint as something to read from, like a book, then you're not going to be watching your investor. And if you're not watching your investor, then you're going to miss cues and hints and body language pieces of information that you could be using to guide your pitch, and make sure that you're giving the right content and that they're accepting it and that they appreciate it. Because if they're not getting what you're delivering, then you're pitching to dead ears. So as you're going through your presentation, watch your investor, ask them open-ended questions, and let them dialogue with you so that you can stay engaged and understand what it is they need to hear from you to be most comfortable with your deal. I do want to mention that if you have extra information that you just simply cannot bear to not include, then just add it as an appendix at the end past your last title slide so that you don't have it cluttering up the presentation. You can reference it if the investor asks about it specifically, but otherwise it's not forcing you into a long presentation. You have to remember, the investor doesn't want to hear you lecture them about your business. They want to have a dialogue. So they're going to ask questions that are off slide, they're going to ask questions that are on a different slide in a different part of your presentation, and you have to kind of be ready to jump around for that. They also don't want you to ramble for 20 slides about your business and then at the end go, have any questions? Because of course they have questions. They've been listening to you for 20 minutes and they have 100 questions. So you want to build into each slide a brief Q&A session so that they have an opportunity to get that from you. After every single slide, your investor should be able to have a confirming question or an exploratory question before you move on to the next topic. Add in breathing room between each slide so that your investor can follow you naturally, can have an open dialogue and discussion with you, and so that you're not preaching at them from any kind of pedestal where they can't engage with you as a human. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's it for now. If you have any thoughts, feel free to leave them in the comment section. But otherwise, I hope that you have an amazing pitching experience. And until next time, stay positive, entrepreneurs.